Discover the incredible moment my daughter exposed hidden truths about our finances in court. Emily sat in the cold courtroom, her heart pounding like a drum. As she glanced down at the worn wooden surface, the ghosts of her family's legacy haunted her thoughts. The estate left behind by her father was slipping through her fingers, just like the last bits of hope she had for a better life for Sophie, her 10-year-old daughter. Bills stacked high on the kitchen table, glaring at her, reminding her every moment of her precarious situation. The shame clung to her like a heavy blanket, suffocating her spirit. Every day at the diner felt like a fight. Serving coffee and pie to the townsfolk, she'd put on a brave face, but inside, it was all a battle. When 8 hours of work still left her with nothing but debt to wrestle, despair wrapped itself around her tighter. The thought of facing her brother in court, a successful businessman whose very presence sinisterly embodied everything she detested: privilege, arrogance, the blinding belief that money equated to worth, made her stomach turn. The rift between them ran deep, each sibling a soldier in the battle for their family's legacy, caught between nostalgia and the harsh reality of financial struggle. As she prepared for the day that loomed ahead, she felt the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights. Just then, Sophie shifted in her chair, looking up at her mother with wide, innocent eyes. With a childlike determination, Sophie had crafted a presentation filled with colorful drawings and numbers. "Mom, I want to help," she had insisted, her voice filled with conviction. Emily didn't know to feel pride or fear at the thought of such an innocent weapon in the warfare of a family dispute. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. In the courtroom, when the judge called their case, Emily felt the world tighten around her. She was ready to fight for what was left of her father's dreams. Just as the caustic air filled with tension, Sophie stepped forward. Standing tall in her little dress, with her notepad clutched tight to her chest, she captured the attention of every eye there. The room silenced, disbelief etched on the faces of onlookers, including Emily's brother. "Listen," Sophie's voice rang out, clear and unwavering. "This family is more than just property and money. We have dignity." With her innocent bravery, she began to speak about the bills and the struggles, sharing thoughts that echoed her mother's silent fears. It felt like a beam of sunlight breaking through storm clouds, illuminating the hidden truths about equality and the struggles of working families. Every word Sophie spoke felt both a comfort and a stab to Emily's heart. Pride swelled within her, yet the fear of exposure loomed large. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as Sophie's voice rose above the din. Emily caught the flicker of emotions on her brother's face: surprise, irritation, and something else that felt like regret. As the debate raged on, Emily found herself torn. Protect Sophie from the harshness of the world, or let her voice blaze the path for their future. The tension crackled in the air as if the universe held its breath. Would they have the strength to fight together, or would the chasms of their past swallow them whole? The silence that enveloped them felt heavy, yet charged with possibility, as Emily's heart raced faster than ever. Would this unexpected battle be their salvation or despair? The tension in the air felt electric as the courtroom held its collective breath, letting the weight of Sophie's words sink in. Emily's heart thudded in her chest like a war drum, echoing her daughter's call for dignity and truth. Sophie stood, unfazed by the scrutinizing stares, her little body radiating courage. For a moment, Emily fought against the urge to rush to her side and shield her from the harsh realities they faced, but she focused instead on the bravery blooming in her daughter. "Sophie," the judge said, breaking the silence, "this is not a place for children. Are you certain you want to continue?" "Yes, Your Honor. My mom, she works really hard, and she's telling the truth. We need help." The fire in Sophie's voice lit a fuse in Emily's chest. fear and pride intertwined into a knot of overwhelming emotion. Perhaps this unexpected courage from a 10-year-old could turn the tides. Emily's brother, Mark, shifted in his seat, his typical stoic demeanor cracking under the weight of Sophie's conviction. It stirred something deep within him, remembrance of their shared childhood, the laughter, the love surrounding their family before life took its unpredictable course. But a glance at Emily, full of resolve, hardened his focus. He wasn't about to let sentimentality get in his way. "Sophie, this isn't just your home, it's a business," he replied, irritation lacing his tone. "You don't understand how the world works. You're being used as a pawn." Emily's spine stiffened. "No, she's speaking truth, Mark. You've lost sight of what matters. It's never just been about property." Her voice resonated as she steeled herself against the real threat, losing not just the estate, but the values that had come with it. Sophie, sensing her mother's fight, looked up into her eyes, a bond forming with unspoken strength. "Mommy, we can do this together, right?" Tears pricked the edges of Emily's vision. "Yes, darling, together, always." The courtroom felt like a battlefield. Each side pitched in an emotional tug-of-war. Mark's smug confidence crumbled slightly as he encountered the unyielding spirit of a child, one who reminded everyone present what love could mean in the face of greed. The murmur of the gathered crowd grew louder. Emily could sense the growing support from the families in the back, people who knew what it was like to struggle, to hunger, to balance life on a tightrope. "You wouldn't throw away everything just for money, would you?" Sophie continued, staring at her uncle with unyielding belief. "That's not fair." The ire and scorn from Mark seemed to fade, replaced with something resembling confusion. Emily grasped at the delicate moment, knowing better than to lose hope. "We deserve this, Mark. We deserve to honor Dad's legacy the right way, and it means being family again." The fervor of these words pushed against the air as Emily locked eyes with her brother. In that brief silence that followed, she saw clarity wash across Mark's face. Maybe, just maybe, the hunched figure of his success wasn't worth the price of their connections. As the judge adjourned for a brief recess, Emily could feel the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about saving a house, but about rebuilding their lives, their relationships. Sophie smiled nervously, longing for a hug, that connection that had been stretched so thin. But the looming question hung in the balance. Would the courtroom's next discussion turn the tides, or would the rift between the siblings deepen once more? As the gavel rapped for the recess, a familiar feeling settled in Emily's gut, a mix of hope and anxiety as the fissures of familial loyalty shifted around them. What would they choose to protect? Would family overcome money once again, or was this only the beginning of another fight? Emily took a deep breath as she sat back in her seat, feeling the warmth of Sophie's small hand wrapped around her fingers. The recess, while allowing for a momentary pause, felt like a ticking clock. Each second held its own weight, pressing down on her chest. Around them, the crowd shifted restlessly, murmurs bubbling up like a pot about to boil over. Mark remained seated, staring blankly ahead, the shadows of doubt flickering across his features. Emily wanted to reach out to tell him things could still be repaired, to remind him of the glimmers of their youth when love had come first. But the distance between them felt like an insurmountable chasm. "Mommy, do you think Uncle Mark will help us?" Sophie's sweet voice shattered Emily's reverie, pulling her back to reality. The hopeful innocence in her daughter's eyes hurt, especially given the grim atmosphere that loomed. I hope so, sweetheart," Emily replied, her voice wavering slightly. "He just needs time to think. To remember." And yet, deep down, she knew the stakes were painfully high. Mark had always been the cautious one, practical to a fault, whereas Emily had embraced the warmth of love and family, often at the expense of financial security. When the judge returned, a palpable hush enveloped the courtroom. Emily felt the air thicken as everyone settled back into the tension. Mark's face remained unreadable, but something about his posture suggested the weight of Emily's words had made an imprint. "Let us continue," the judge instructed, his voice steady. "Miss Sophie, please take a seat if you're done speaking." Sophie squeezed Emily's hand, and her mother felt a jolt of strength course through her, as if her daughter was channeling all the determination they needed. "Mommy, can I speak one more time?" Sophie asked, her voice small but resolute. The judge hesitated before nodding again, curiosity mingling with concern. "All right. If you feel it is important, go ahead." Sophie stood once more, her tiny frame straight and proud. "I want to say that family means more than money. We had so many happy times in our home. Uncle Mark, remember the time we all built a fort in the living room? Or when we made that big snowman together?" Her eyes sparkled with memories. Mark flinched slightly at the mention of their shared past. The courtroom felt charged, as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting for a crack in his hard shell. "Those times were real," Sophie continued, earnestness radiating from her. "We had fun together. I believe we can have that again. Please, let us not let this fight take it away." Tears pooled at the corners of Emily's eyes. She could see the slightest tremor in Mark's jaw, the vulnerability he masked with toughness. The familiar sight made her heart ache. But would he allow emotion to lead him back to family? With each passing moment, the room held its collective breath. Emily's heart raced. The truth was that family could thrive again, but only if Mark was willing to step back from greed and into the warmth of reconciliation. As silence lingered after Sophie's heartfelt plea, a new wave of uncertainty swept over Emily. What if this wasn't enough to reach Mark? What if their family was too broken to be mended? Mark finally took a deep breath, opening his mouth as if to respond. Emily leaned forward, grasping Sophie's hand tighter, hope flooding her veins. But before any words could come out, the judge interrupted, a stern look crossing his face. "Let us not forget, while this is a heartfelt situation, there are legalities we must address here. I expect professionalism and clarity." Emily clenched her jaw. Legalities. The word itself felt like a barrier between them and their dreams. As the courtroom buzzed with whispers about the judge's admonishment, something stirred deep within Emily. She could not let fear stop her, not now when hope hung so delicately in the air. But how? The thought lingered as she looked at her brother again. Determination battling with doubt. Was reconciliation really possible? The reality struck. They would have to face the truth of their family's legacy. But what if revealing that truth put everything at risk? The moment teetered precariously, like a fragile balance about to tip. Emily felt a quickening pulse within her. Something was coming, a decision hidden just beyond reach, waiting to unfold. What risky revelation would emerge in the courtroom next, and would it draw them closer or drive them further apart? Emily's heart sank as the judge's words hung in the air, a heavy reminder of the walls constructed between them. She glanced at Sophie, who, wide-eyed, watched her uncle. In that moment, something within Emily snapped. They couldn't just sit there doing nothing. "Your Honor," she said, her voice shaking but firm, "if I may." The judge's brow arched, but he beckoned her to continue. "Mark, we can't keep pretending everything is okay. Sophie is right. Our family means more than anything else." She felt the warmth of Sophie's hand slip against hers. It was a lifeline, a reminder of what they meant to each other. "I know things look dark, but please, let us remember our foundation," Emily pressed on. "We've built a life together, shared laughter, and brewed storms together. You taught me how to ride a bike when I fell. I want to believe that we can navigate this relationship just like we navigated those old roads." Mark's shoulders tightened, and Emily watched his jaw clench. He seemed to be battling an internal war. The softness in his blue eyes was there, but it flickered behind a mask of defiance. "We can't go back and erase what happened," Mark finally spoke, his voice strained. "The financial strain, it's hard. I thought I was protecting us." His words fell like stones, heavy and unyielding. Emily's heart raced. "But at what cost, Mark? We're losing each other. You're losing Sophie." The atmosphere crackled as the courtroom held its collective breath. Emily's gut twisted, sympathy bursting through her while fear gripped her heart. "What if we could get through this?" she suggested, her voice now softer. "I believe we can rebuild our trust. We have so much to work with. But we have to face the truth together." "Truth?" Mark echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. The weight of the words seemed to swallow the space around them. Yes, the truth about our finances. The dreams we chased. The fears we hid. It's going to hurt, but we owe it to Sophie, to ourselves, to face it all. If we don't, we'll lose everything that matters. Emily could see a crack in Mark's defenses. He closed his eyes for a fleeting moment, and in that instant, the room faded away. It was just the two of them, siblings once filled with joy and laughter, now precariously balancing on a knife's edge. Remember that summer? The one where we built the treehouse? You said it was our castle in the sky, Emily recalled, her voice catching slightly as she fought back tears. Can we create a new one? Right now, together? His breaths grew more pronounced as memories breached his walls. She could almost see the defiance melting away, replaced by something softer, something raw. The judge cleared his throat, reminding them of the court's purpose. While sentimental, you've raised important points. However, we need to address specifics. Mark shifted in focus, and Emily squeezed Sophie's hand, drawing strength from the little girl who still believed in miracles. What are you thinking, Mark? She asked gently, her heart pounding. Silence stretched on as Mark's expression morphed from vulnerability to uncertainty. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Emily could feel all eyes in the courtroom on them, an expectant audience caught up in a moment far beyond legalities. What if Mark shared the secret he'd been guarding all this time? Would it save or condemn them? The walls felt closer, and Emily braced herself. Whatever came next could shatter their fragile balance, perhaps even destroy everything they had left. But then again, it just might be what they needed to break free. Could this be the turning point they desperately sought? Or would it deepen the chasm that seemed to grow with each heartbeat in the charged silence? Mark's struggles were etched deep across his brow. He shifted in his seat, his hands clenched on the table, knuckles white like he was holding onto a lifeline. Emily's eyes never left him, pleading, begging for a change. The silence stretched, wrapping around them all like a thick fog. Finally, the tension crumbled. I let you down, Mark said, his words barely above a whisper. They hung heavy in the air, but this time, they felt like a crack in the walls. Sophie's eyes flickered up to her uncle, and Emily felt her heart swell. The little girl's innocence contrasted with the courtroom drama. She squeezed Emily's hand again, not understanding the grown-up world, but trusting in her mother's love. What do you mean? Sophie asked, her voice small but hopeful. Mark looked at her, and for the first time, Emily saw genuine emotion break through the layers he had built around himself. I was scared. I didn't want to burden you both with the weight of our situation. You think we can't handle it? Emily interjected gently, her voice as soft as a breeze. We're a team, Mark. You protect us by hiding things, and all it does is build a wall of secrets. We have to face it together. I know, he replied, finally meeting her gaze. I should have told you how bad it really was. I thought keeping it from you would be easier. Mark's shame was palpable, but with each passing second, it felt lighter, like he was surrendering to the moment. Emily watched as he blinked away tears, revealing the turmoil that lay beneath his tough exterior. Emboldened, Emily took another step. What's the truth, Mark? What don't we know? We can't move forward if we're standing on a shaky foundation. He took a shaky breath, glancing at the judge as if seeking permission. I've been trying to hold everything together after Dad's accident and the medical bills, but it spiraled. The house is in jeopardy. His voice broke, and the admission hit like a punch. The gasp from the gallery was audible, shock rippling through the room. Mark flinched, the weight of revelation settling heavily on his shoulders. Emily's heart sank as the reality of their situation smacked her. We could lose the house? Sophie whispered, eyes wide with fear. We can't let that happen, Emily replied, her own heart racing. There has to be a way. She turned to Mark, desperate. We can do this. We can figure out a plan together. Mark nodded slowly, the defiance fading. I thought if I could magically create a solution on my own, it would just fix everything. But I can't do it alone anymore. Then don't, Emily urged, feeling her own resolve strengthen. Let us navigate this together, like we used to. Tears filled her eyes, not from despair but from a newfound hope. There was a flicker in Mark's expression. It was as if he had finally seen a glimpse of the future, a future they could still hold on to. "That's the second time you've reminded me of the treehouse," he said, allowing a hint of a smile. "Our castle. Together." The tension in the courtroom felt different now, charged with an electric possibility. But before they could catch their breath, the judge interrupted with a shake of his head. "Let us focus on practicality. A solution needs to be presented that addresses these financial concerns immediately." Mark exchanged a glance with Emily. The path forward was daunting, but it was a path nonetheless. As their hands linked across the table, Emily felt a swell of determination. What was meant to shatter them might just spark a new beginning. But as the judge set a date for their next hearing, the reality hit hard. Could they truly unravel the mess Mark had kept from her? What other secrets lay buried in their lives? For the first time, Emily feared they might be closer to uncovering chaos than closure. Would this journey mend their family, or would it tear them apart further? With the sound of the gavel echoing through the room, Emily's heart raced. The clock was ticking, and she realized they needed to act fast before the walls closed in once more. Mark ran his fingers through his hair, trying to grasp the weight of what they were facing. Emily could feel the storm brewing inside him, and she wanted to reach out, but he seemed pulled inward, lost in thoughts so frantic they could burst. Sophie sat in the middle, a beacon of innocence, but she had no idea of the tumult swirling around them. "Okay, what is our first step?" Emily asked, her voice steady, though her heart thumped loud. She tilted her head, coaxing Mark out of his fog. "We can make a plan if we confront this together." I don't know where to start," he muttered, staring at the wood grain of the table. "The mortgage is overdue there's just so much." "Then let us tackle it piece by piece," Emily urged. "Have you talked to the bank? What about our savings?" "What savings?" Mark shot back, frustration tinged with sorrow. "There's nothing left. I've been working every extra shift I can find. But it's not enough." Sophie looked from her mother to her uncle, her small brow furrowed. "Can't we just tell the bank we'll fix it?" A pang of vulnerability swept through Emily. "It's not that simple, sweetheart," she said softly, kneeling to meet Sophie's gaze. "Sometimes adults have to face hard truths. But we're strong together, remember?" At that moment, Mark's eyes met Emily's again, and something shifted. "Together, yeah, maybe that's how we do this." The flicker of hope ignited, and for the first time, he leaned toward them, abandoning the fortress he had built. "Let us make a list," Emily said hastily, grabbing a pen from her bag. "We'll gather all our paperwork. Then we can meet with a financial advisor. There's gotta be options we haven't explored. Maybe we can negotiate payment plans or look for assistance. But what if they say no?" Mark's voice quavered, vulnerability pouring back. What if we lose the house?" The fear hung in the air, palpable, but Emily couldn't let it take root. "Then we fight. We'll figure out where to stay, where to go, but I promise you, we won't let this break us apart." "Yeah, Uncle Mark!" Sophie chimed in, her little fists pumping in the air. "We can do it. Like superheroes." Mark let out a breathy laugh, the corners of his mouth turning up in a smile strengthened by Sophie's light. "Superheroes, huh? Definitely." Sophie beamed, her eyes sparkling with determination untainted by reality. As they discussed their options, a whirlwind of thoughts whirled through Emily's head. Yet, deep down, she sensed that this was just the beginning. The courtroom's setting had stripped them of all pretenses, revealing their core, and the truths they had yet to uncover would unleash a powerful force. "We'll meet tomorrow after the kids are in bed. We can go through everything then," Emily continued, her spirit buoyed by this momentum. "Mark, you have to be honest with yourself about the struggles. It's okay to feel fear, but we'll face it together." Little had changed in their external circumstances, but within the three of them, a shift had sparked. They were moving. They weren't just sitting in defeat anymore. As they left the courtroom, a sense of determination ignited within her. But just as a shadow creeped back into the forefront of her mind, a nagging thought betrayed her hope. What would the bank say if their debts were laid bare? Would they meet with compassion or cold indifference, ready to take everything they had worked for? Those unanswered questions clung to her heart as they stepped out, and a chill swept through the evening air, mirroring her unease. She could feel the swift approach of potential danger lurking just around the corner. What would the next meeting hold? In a world filled with uncertainty, could they truly be courageous enough to face their financial demons? The next day dawned, gray and overcast, a fitting backdrop for the brewing storm of emotions within Emily. She woke early, heart racing as her thoughts raced faster than the clock. A sense of urgency gripped her. Today was crucial. In the kitchen, she brewed coffee, her hands shaking slightly. The aroma filled the small space, wrapping around her like a fragile comfort. Sophie stumbled in, hair tousled and eyes still puffy from sleep. "Mom, can I have pancakes?" she asked, her voice muffled with drowsiness. "Of course, sweetheart," Emily said with a tender smile. Making pancakes felt nearly routine, but today, it felt symbolic, a moment of normalcy amidst the chaos. As Sophie chatted about dreams of flying, Emily's mind alternated between loving her daughter and worrying about the meeting ahead. After breakfast, she found Mark sitting on the couch, head resting in hands. The weight of yesterday's conversation loomed large, casting shadows over them both. "Hey," she said softly, trying to penetrate his fog. "Ready to tackle this together?" He looked up, a flicker of resolve crossing his face. "Yeah, I want to protect you and Sophie. I'm scared of what might happen." Emily moved to sit beside him, resting her hand on his shoulder. "I know. We're going in there armed with our truth. Remember, this is about more than just numbers. It's about our family." Mark nodded, the hard edges of his worry softening as he glanced at Sophie, drawing joy from her innocence. "Let's grab everything and head out," she encouraged, rising to gather their paperwork. Between their debts, pay stubs, and bills, they spent the previous night organizing their lives into a manageable pile of reality. The drive to the bank felt heavier than the muggy air pressing against their car windows. Emily gripped the wheel, adrenaline mixing with dread. Mark sat stiffly, his foot tapping an anxious rhythm against the floor mat. Beside them, Sophie was blissfully singing to herself, the weight of adult problems far from her mind. When they arrived, the facade of the bank felt cold and imposing. Emily parked, taking a moment to breathe. "We can do this," she reassured Mark. "Let us focus on what we can change, not what we can't control." She reached for his hand, the simple gesture grounding them both. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with impatience and tension. They sat in the waiting area, surrounded by unfamiliar faces, some battling their own financial storms. Emily's heart sank as she watched an elderly woman tearfully explain her struggle to an unyielding teller. When their turn finally came, they followed a stern-looking manager into a small office. She greeted them with a schooled smile, but Emily could sense the steel beneath it. "Let's review your situation," the manager said as she gestured for them to sit. Mark sat down heavily, the weight of their fears crashing around them like a tidal wave. Emily shared their story with shaky resolve, aware of the fragility of hope in the face of hard truth. Yet, just as she spoke, a small commotion caught Emily's eye. Sophie had slipped from her chair and was standing at the office door, staring wide-eyed at a poster on the wall showcasing financial literacy for kids. The bright images appeared to ignite something in her. "Mom, look," Sophie called, her innocence slicing through the tense atmosphere as she pointed to the poster. "We should be superheroes with money too." The bank manager paused mid-sentence, her brow arching in surprise. Mark's lips twitched with a smile, the moment's purity piercing through their anxiety. "Maybe she's right," Mark said, laughter bubbling up uncontrollably. It was an unexpected ripple of normalcy, and with it came an idea. Emily could hardly believe it. Her chest swelled with a new kind of energy, brightening the dark shadows of doubt. Could this child's simple wisdom turn the tide for them? Just as the thought settled in, the manager's expression changed, subtly shifting from skepticism to curiosity. "Perhaps we can explore a few options." After all, the room held its breath, and Emily felt the weight of possibility unfurl. What other truths would unravel in this surprising moment? The bank manager leaned back in her chair, her fingers drumming lightly on the desk as she considered Sophie's words. The atmosphere was thick with a strange mix of hope and apprehension. Emily could feel Mark's gaze, a mix of confusion and dawning realization in his eyes. Children often see the world differently, the manager finally said, her voice softer now. Perhaps it's time to rethink how we address financial education for families. Emily felt a flicker of something, a spark igniting the embers of fear. What do you mean? She asked, her heart racing, but filled with a daring curiosity. Are there programs or options available to us? The manager nodded slowly, leaning forward, her demeanor shifting into one of genuine interest. We offer resources for families looking to turn their financial situations around. It can be daunting, but knowledge is power. As she spoke, Emily took a breath, grappling with the myriad of emotions swirling inside her. This sudden shift felt surreal. Was there a glimmer of hope? Would learning more about finances truly empower them, change their trajectory? Sophie bounced excitedly on her toes, her earlier declaration fading into a sense of urgency. Can we do that, Mom? Can we be superheroes? Emily chuckled, tempted by the infectious energy radiating from her daughter. We can if we work hard and learn how to be smart with money. Mark's shoulders relaxed. They both turned their gaze towards Sophie. After a moment, their daughter asked, "Does it mean we have to worry?" The question hung heavy in the air. Emily chewed her lip, anticipation mixing with the fear still gnawing at her gut. The reality was still daunting, but they had a chance, didn't they? It means we'll have tools to help with our worries. We can learn together. The manager began to pull out brochures and materials, detailing workshops and resources. Her voice flowed like a steady stream, sharing information about budgeting techniques, saving plans, and even contact information for financial counselors. I understand this is overwhelming, the manager said, eyeing them with compassion. But you must keep an open mind. You can make changes, adjustments. It won't be easy, but you're not alone. Mark glanced at Emily, a silent conversation passing between them. Their fears still loomed, but edged with a flicker of hope for the first time in a long while. Emily reached for Mark's hand, squeezing it as she met his eyes. We'll make a plan. Together. Just then, Sophie piped up, and I can be the superhero sidekick. Both adults laughed, the heaviness lifting momentarily. In that tiny moment, beneath the weighty discussions of numbers, debts, and responsibility, a wave of warmth flowed through them. As they left the manager's office, taking the materials with renewed resolve, Emily could feel the ground shifting beneath her. It wasn't just about managing debts anymore. It felt like they were being handed a lifeline, a real possibility of transformation. But what would it take to shift from despair to hope for their whole family? With Sophie's innocent encouragement lighting the way, what plans would they devise? As they stepped back into the chilly bank lobby, Emily wondered, would this newfound journey lead them to true financial independence, or would they find themselves facing new challenges they hadn't prepared for? Stepping out into the bustling bank lobby, Emily felt her heartbeat quicken, her mind racing with the possibilities ahead. The weight in her chest had lightened, but it was still there, a reminder of the reality they faced. She glanced down at Sophie, her daughter's excitement palpable. "All right, superhero sidekick," Emily said, playfully nudging Sophie's shoulder. "What's the first thing we should do?" Sophie thought for a moment, her brow furrowed in deep concentration. "We should make a treasure map. We can find all the hidden gold," she declared, eyes twinkling with mischief. Emily chuckled, imagining their life as a grand adventure, full of treasures to uncover. "You're right. Let us create our treasure map. But instead of gold, we'll look for savings and smart buys." Mark finally chimed in, a smirk on his face. "So, are we going to draw excess on our map to find buried savings?" Emily felt warmth spread through her. The smiles exchanged between them felt like sunlight breaking through a cloudy day. For a moment, they were just a family being silly, focusing on hope rather than weighty issues. They decided to head for a nearby cafe. As they settled into a cozy corner with steaming mugs, chocolate milk for Sophie and coffee for the adults, Emily glanced at the brochures the bank manager had given them. They were filled with graphs and pie charts, almost daunting on the surface. Yet the color and the words popped with possibility. "Let us make a list of what we want to change," Mark suggested. "More savings for emergencies. A budget to keep track of our spending. And maybe a little bit set aside for fun because we also deserve that." Sophie nodded vigorously, clearly loving the idea of having a part in this decision-making. "And a new board game. We can save up for one." Emily couldn't help but laugh again. Board games definitely count as fun. As they scribbled ideas on napkins, a sense of unity filled the air. Emily felt the shift inside her, a desire to turn their tentative hope into action. They weren't just talking, they were planning, dreaming, mapping out their future. Each idea sparked more enthusiasm, more commitment. But just as they began to feel invincible, doubt crept in, thin as a whisper. What if they stumbled along the way? What if their plans weren't enough? Emily's mind flashed back to the daunting bills piled on the kitchen counter, and the weight of those worries felt heavy again. Still, the laughter around the table anchored her, and she focused on the moment. "Okay, so what is our first step?" she asked, turning to Mark, who had been deep in thought. "There's a budgeting workshop next week," Mark replied. He looked determined. "Let us sign up." They agreed then and there. A firm commitment. The thrill of possibility surged through Emily, mingling with the metallic taste of apprehension. Could this really be the start of something transformative? As they finished their drinks, Sophie shifted, her tiny fingers tracing the outlines of their nascent treasure map drawn on the napkin. "Mom, what if we don't find it?" she asked suddenly, gaze serious. Emily swallowed hard. "What if we don't?" she echoed, feeling the weight of the question. "But what if we do?" The silence hung between them, thick with the reality of their situation and the unknown path ahead. Outside, a gust of wind rattled the cafe windows, as if urging them to face whatever was coming. They stepped outside, renewed purpose guiding their footsteps. Emily felt emboldened by their collective energy, but she knew deep down challenges lurked around every corner. What lessons would they learn on this journey? And would they truly be prepared for the unexpected hurdles that lay ahead, waiting to test their newfound strength? The adventure was just beginning. Emily stood in the middle of the living room, arms crossed, surveying the surroundings that had been her sanctuary and battleground over the last few months. The walls were cluttered with sketches, charts, and colorful stickers, remnants of the treasure map created during their budgeting workshop. It felt both exhilarating and surreal. The quest for financial freedom had transformed into a family project filled with hope and collaboration. After weeks of chaotic meetings, emotional discussions, and navigating through spreadsheets, changes were finally starting to take shape. The bank had agreed to a temporary payment plan, giving them time to breathe. Mark's tentative smile had grown steady, and Sophie's laughter rang like music in the air, contagious and vibrant. They were becoming superheroes of their own story. "Mom, look!" Sophie shouted, running into the room with a paper clutched in her hand. "I did the math." Emily's heart lit up. "You did? Let us see." She crouched down, excitement bubbling within her. Sophie unfolded the crinkled paper, revealing an account of their savings, each little dollar sign a bright spot amid their financial struggles. "I wrote down all the ways we can save money and stick to a budget," Sophie explained, her eyes wide with pride. "And I even drew how much we can put in our fund jar." Tears brimmed in Emily's eyes as she grasped the depth of her daughter's understanding. "That's wonderful, sweetie. You're amazing," she said, pulling her into a warm hug. With Sophie held closely, Emily's gaze fell upon Mark, who leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed with a proud smile of his own. He was changing, shedding the layers of worry like unwanted skin. Slowly, the brothers and sisters who had once fought for survival and legacy were starting to reconnect, finding common ground not in gripes but in goals. "Looks like we might just become superheroes in more ways than one," Mark said, his voice filled with warmth. "Definitely. And we'll be the best team ever." That afternoon, they made a pact, a commitment to hold each other accountable as they ventured into their new financial education. They pledged to learn together, to celebrate small wins, and to remain true to their family values. As days turned into weeks, the journey unfolded, filled with dueling emotions of fear, hope, and pure joy. They attended more workshops, shared laughter over budgeting errors, and learned the true meaning of sacrifice and resilience. For once, the laughter drowned out the familiar gnawing worry about unpaid bills. One evening, as they sat together around the dinner table, Sophie, beaming with enthusiasm, burst into a new topic. "You know what we should do? We should make a memory jar." "A memory jar?" Mark asked, puzzled. "Yeah, for all the fun things we do while working on our treasure map. It'll remind us that we're superheroes, not just fighting money problems." Emily felt her heart swell as the idea blossomed within their little family. Together, they conjured up moments to fill the jar, from dancing in the living room to looking for coupons in the supermarket. Each memory became a little gem, adding richness to their journey. Months passed and the family continued to evolve, learning about their finances and cherishing their time together in ways they hadn't thought possible. The trepidation of losing their home morphed into a celebrated adventure of growth. They transformed those stressful moments into teachable lessons. Sophie thrived as both student and teacher, guiding them with her keen insights. Then one day, a breakthrough occurred. Mark received a call from the bank, and his demeanor shifted in an instant. Emily's heart raced as she scanned his face, wondering if it was good or bad news. "I can't believe it," he exclaimed. "They agreed to extend our payment plan. And they're offering us a chance to lower our interest rate." Sophie squealed in delight, throwing her arms around her uncle. "We did it. We're the best superheroes." Emily felt a tear slide down her cheek, a tear of gratitude and relief. "This is incredible news, Mark. Hard work does pay off." As they hugged tightly, Emily's heart filled with an overwhelming sense of pride for all they had accomplished together. This was more than a victory over finances. It was the crystallization of their bond as a family, emerging from the depths of despair into the light of hope and possibility. In that moment, looking around at the faces of her daughter and brother, Emily finally realized that hope wasn't something you stumbled upon. It was crafted, nurtured, and built like the most beautiful treehouse, one that her family would cherish and reinforce every day. It was time to celebrate all over again. With her heart full, Emily turned toward her family and declared, "Let us make a memory right now. Who wants to build an ice cream sundae tower?" The room erupted with laughter, creating a new memory, a moment in time that would forever remain boxed within their jar, representing the love, struggle, and triumph that had brought them together. Standing together, they stepped boldly into their future. So, let us take a stand for our family here. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next amazing story of transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread this inspiration. Comment below your own thoughts about resilience and family. And share instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful journey. Don't wait not even one more second to boost your support for our community.